Hi, I'm Dan. Thanks for checking in on Dimgaard. I want to spend a few minutes today talking about sidekicks, because sidekicks have become a pretty important part of the material that we're preparing for release, as well as the campaigns that we are playtesting and running. And sidekicks are a non-player character that you can add to the party, to the adventuring party. That's what they are designed to do. They were originally released in Unearthed Arcana. There were some revisions, and then the final official release was part of Tasha's Cauldron of Everything. And Jeremy Crawford did an excellent job of he's released several interviews, some exclusively about sidekicks, but he's done an excellent job of explaining them in that capacity and promoting them justifiably. I think that this is a very well done thing. What they remind me of is back in 3.5, you had NPC classes that were significantly less varied, much more streamlined, much narrower in their focus. And those were warriors, experts, and adepts. Although the experts from 3.5 were not so much rogues type, like in 5th edition, the expert is very clearly inspired by the rogue type PC classes, but that was not the case in 3.5. 3.5, the expert was like a master of skills, But anyway, that's a digression. So, as I said, the clear intent, both from what Jeremy Crawford has put out there, as well as other people in the development team, and just what is in the text of Tasha's Cauldron of Everything, is that sidekicks are intended to be an additional party member. So, for example, if you're starting a new campaign and you've only managed to get 2 or 3 players involved, and you're like, oh, I really want this to be a campaign for 4 or 5 players, or for 4 or 5 player characters, that's when it's going to run best. You can add in a sidekick or 2 to get that party up to that desired number. Similarly, if you have a campaign that's running along and has 4 or 5 PCs, and you're like, oh, this is really nice, but then holidays roll in, or someone has COVID-19 or whatever, and is going to have to miss a week or 2, you can drop in a sidekick to fill that missing character's role. And like I said, it's very well designed for that function. It performs that function extremely well, from what I can tell, and that is a function that is often needed. I think that just that alone would be a nice addition to the suite of tools that we have in D&D 5th edition. However, what I have found in working with sidekicks is they fill a number of additional slots that are also very good. So, like from the beginning of 5th edition, it's been well known and well documented that first level parties are extremely fragile. Probably half of all TPKs end up in first level adventures, which is no fun, particularly if you have new players, right? So, and there's never been a good solution to that, right? You don't want to just overtly softball it. You end up having to do what you see a lot of times is a lot of revisions, and sometimes people just skip first levels, even second levels. They will just start at third level, so anyway, so all those have kind of problems as a solution. But while I said as by design, the sidekick classes are much narrower in focus, much more streamlined, and they won't steal the show from the player characters, even at first level. Like the things that the sidekicks do at first level are clearly designed to leverage the PC's abilities, not not to steal the show or make this or take the action and away from the players, right? We still have the players are the most important and the focus of the game. Agency for the players always has been the focus of the game, and sidekicks don't change that. However, at first level, sidekicks are going to have more hit points than first level PCs, because they inherit those hit points from their base monster or base NPC, and that does increase the survivability of the party. Right, having a sidekick or two who has that extra pool of hit points can really, in those crucial situations where things can go south really bad, which we're talking about combat there, right? That those extra significant pool of hit points is definitely increases first level and even second level party survivability. And this all for my Dimgaard games, this also fits in. If you followed my Dimgaard games, you'll see at first level adventures, I very often will assign PCs a boon of some kind, like maybe they have their liege or organization has assigned them a mastiff as a guard dog for a while, or they have access to an inspiring leader, so that they start out with the adventuring day with a pool of extra temporary hit points. So adding a sidekick, right? So you come from some organization or from some benefactor, and they've sent one of their men-at-arms to get you started on your way. That is completely consistent with what we've been doing in Dimgaard all along, and it has, in the several times that I've used them in that first level capacity, it's worked out really well for me. Then on an ongoing story element, very often there will be a particular expectation that you're wanting in the party, and if that is missing, then it makes the story flow problematic. Just so, for example, in the one that we're play testing now, that we're working through our active current campaign, it's expected that the heroes will be capturing bad guys and interrogating them successfully along the way, because there's a stream of information then that gets to the party, which then allows them to move the story in a certain direction. Well, for one particular party that I am DMing for this, there's in the 5 PCs, there's no one who is really adept at interrogation, and it's been, in fact, by a certain point, the party just abandoned interrogations. Says, yeah, we all suck at this. We're not going to keep doing this. We'll just sort of try to work our way through it. So you end up wasting a lot of game time on story elements, kind of getting the in place, that if they just had someone who could cast detect thoughts, everything would have been great. So when Tasha's came out, we added an NPC, a prodigy, who has that capacity to cast detect thoughts, and she's typically not with the party. She's like an ally of the party who can come in during downtime or during a long rest and aid with those interrogations, and then so that fills that very important niche to keep the story moving, to get the information we need to the PCs. I mean, there have been a couple of other niche elements that have been filled there, going back to the UA implementation. So you can fill a niche. Another thing that has been a long time problem in 5th edition that there's no elegant solution to is certain archetypes would really like to have an animal companion, right? Like to have a beast who they have an intimate bond with. And we're all familiar with the failure of the Beastmaster ranger. And then druids have never had an animal companion, which is a deviation from previous editions. Druids were always expected to have an animal companion. It goes back to the Beastmaster movie type. But sidekicks can fill that role, right? So we can have a beast warrior, a bear warrior, a brown bear warrior, or a black bear warrior. I'm sorry, or a wolf warrior can be that animal companion. Even there, a halfling outrider, a player who was developing a halfling outrider, and once I saw how the sidekicks were, I added a riding dog sidekick for that character to be the halfling outrider. Because normally, once you reach a point, I don't know, 6th level, your halfling outrider just is walking, because that 11 hit point Mastiff is dead in the first encounter, right? Every time, or not even just to an environmental effect, but that 6th level Mastiff warrior is not, right? They have the survivability to access it. Now then, they do increase the scaling. They're considered a party member, but that is a fine trade-off. It's a very balanced trade-off. And like I said, that has been able to complete a long time problem in 5th edition. Then there are some sort of things that were in previous editions that sidekicks allow us to move in to 5th edition, and I think even Crawford has commented on this. So going all the way back to it, to add Advanced Dungeons and Dragons, AD&D, you had this concept of, at some point in a adventurer's career, they would attract followers, right? And how do you handle that? So, for example, in 5th edition, if you have a paladin who wants to develop a martial order aligned with some sort of faith, who's going to jump in there? Well, now we have that, right? We can take noble or even just guard and add warriors to them, and warrior sidekick levels to them, and poof, you can create your followers. And you can do that with like if you have an arcane PC who's wanting to establish some sort of a college or a library, who's going to staff that? Boom, you take your apprentice wizard, add some mage spellcaster levels to them, and you've got a population there. On and on. That's not something even that's a part of every campaign, but when it is a part of a campaign, whenever players want to bring that in, it is a very much a defining characteristic of their character concept. And there always before, there was no elegant solution to that, to implementing that character concept, and now there is, right? Sidekicks definitely provide that functionality. And then from a adventure design standpoint, what I have used them for now several times is, if you look at the scaling for certain encounters, you will have something like, for each PC of a certain level, you need a CR4 and a CR2, right? And you would like that CR2 maybe to be a base class or a base monster, like an orc or a goblin or even a kobold. And you're like, man, I can go in and use modifying a monster and tweak things and get it up to that CR2. But the sidekick classes, which I say again reminds me of earlier 3.5 NPC classes, provide a very structured, elegant way to advance those antagonist sidekicks up to a good point where you can build an encounter around them. And like I said, I've used that a few times. I expect to use that much more in my adventure development, because I have been so happy with it. So that's a look at sidekicks, how we're using them in the Dimgaard campaign. And if you found this helpful or interesting, it really does help If you can like or subscribe this video, it helps us to get an insight on the effectiveness of our information and marketing channels internally. And then it does help YouTube with their algorithms. So it becomes a virtuous cycle. And so we do hope you will do that. And I do appreciate your time.